I should have turned around the second I saw the damn booster seat. It was sitting there, bright blue and plastic, strapped to one of those foldable metal chairs that wobbled when you breathed too hard. That was my spot. My seat at the table. Except it wasn't the table, it was the other one. The kids' table. Napkins with cartoon snowflakes. Plastic forks. A juice box at every setting. At 30 years old, I had officially been demoted to sit next to toddlers covered in mashed potatoes. And the worst part? Everyone else acted like this was perfectly normal. The house smelled like pine and oven-baked sugar, the kind of scent designed to trick you into feeling warm, welcome. My mom had wrapped the banisters in red velvet ribbon, and my dad's vinyl Bing Crosby playlist crooned through the speakers. Fire crackling. Lights twinkling. A Hallmark movie, if you squinted. But underneath the holiday gloss, I could already feel it, that quiet tension. The subtle hierarchy. Like always, everyone knew their place here, and mine hadn't changed. I stepped through the foyer, brushing snow off my coat. It had taken 2 canceled flights and 1 icy rental car drive from Burlington just to get here. I told myself I was doing it for the tradition. For family. But really, I think I was still chasing something I couldn't name. Approval? Belonging? The laughter from the dining room snapped me out of it. I peeked around the corner. Crystal glasses. Linen napkins. My siblings in their picture-perfect outfits, already seated. And there it was, that tiny chair in the corner. My seat. My mom turned, smiled that performative smile, and said sweetly, "Lena, honey. We saved you a special spot. If this hit you somewhere deep, drop a 1 in the comments. I want to hear your story too. Comment below, subscribe, and share with someone who needs to be reminded, you deserve a seat at the table." I used to cry over this stuff. Now I just collect receipts, the emotional kind. Growing up, I was the 4th and final child in a house that had already decided its favorites. My oldest brother Scott was the golden boy, straight A's, star athlete, dad's shadow. My sister Ellie was the showpiece, homecoming queen turned Pinterest perfect mom. And Sam, the quiet middle child, was the peacekeeper, always agreeing with whoever spoke last. Then there was me, Lena. By the time I came along, my parents had run out of enthusiasm. I was the kid they forgot at soccer practice. The one with handmade science fair projects because no one offered to help. I learned early that if I didn't make noise, I'd disappear entirely. So I stopped asking for attention and just worked hard. That emotional distance hardened into something colder as I got older. My mom was polite in a surface-level way, "So proud of you, sweetheart." But it always came with a but. "But when are you going to settle down? But don't you get lonely out there?" My dad, meanwhile, measured success by family tree diagrams and bank statements. Anything that didn't resemble their version of normal just didn't register. Love, to them, was conditional, and I never quite made the cut. Seattle gave me everything Vermont never did. I built a life from scratch. Landed a role as a senior UX designer for one of the fastest-growing firms in the city. Bought my own loft. Learned to cook for 1 and sleep with the windows open. It wasn't flashy, but it was mine. I'd offer updates in the family group chat, a promotion, a photo of my apartment, a picture of me hiking Mt. Rainier, and get a polite thumbs-up emoji or a "you should really visit more." It was like shouting into a void lined with monogram throw pillows. Still, I kept coming back for holidays. I told myself it was tradition, nostalgia, maybe guilt. But deep down, I kept hoping something would shift. That one year, they'd see me clearly, not as the unmarried daughter with no kids, but as someone who'd made it. That this time, I wouldn't feel like a ghost in my own childhood home. But the second I saw that booster seat, I knew. Whatever I'd been waiting for wasn't coming. Not tonight. Maybe not ever. Plastic forks and crayon place cards. That was my Christmas. The main dining room was glowing, soft amber light from a chandelier, polished silverware, wine glasses catching the flicker of tall white candles. Each seat had a name card in scripted gold font, little holly leaves tucked into folded napkins. The real table. Then, off to the side, half in the hallway, was a wobbly folding table draped in a red plastic cloth. Paper plates, neon green cups, 2 booster seats, and a tub of store-bought cookies at the center. My name was written in block letters on a piece of construction paper, sandwiched between Maddie, age 7, and Eli, age 4. My mom spotted me standing there and waved cheerfully. "Lena, honey, we saved you a special spot with the cousins. There wasn't enough room at the big table, but this one's fun." Her voice had that overly sweet pitch she used when saying something awful and pretending it wasn't. "You always loved sitting with the kids growing up, right?" I didn't answer. I couldn't. My mouth moved but nothing came out. She didn't notice. She was already back to adjusting a centerpiece, her back turned like the conversation had never happened. I looked over at the adult table, full. Of course. Ellie sat at Mom's right, her husband beside her, both dressed like they were auditioning for a holiday catalog. Scott caught my eye and smirked. He raised his glass slightly in mock cheers. "Look at you, back where you belong," he said just loud enough for a few people to hear. A chuckle rolled down the table. Rachel, his wife, giggled behind her wine glass. "Well," she added, "you always did march to the beat of your own drum. Guess that beat led you to the kiddie section." My mom didn't say a word. My dad cleared his throat and launched into some story about turkey brining. And just like that, the moment was erased for them. But not for me. I sat down at the kids' table, the cheap chair groaning beneath me, knees practically hitting my chin. Maddie was playing with mashed potatoes. Eli was humming to himself, swinging his legs. I stared at the plate in front of me, suddenly unsure if I could even swallow food. My fingers curled tightly in my lap as the adult table buzzed with clinking glasses and warm laughter. It wasn't just about the chair. It wasn't even about the table. It was about the message they didn't need to say out loud anymore: "You don't belong here. You never did." I felt my chest tighten, a slow, crushing pressure just beneath my ribs. I knew this feeling. Shame, dressed up like politeness. And for the first time in a long time, I didn't want to endure it. I didn't want to rise above. I just wanted out. And that was the moment I decided, I wasn't staying for dessert. My dad stood up and tapped his wine glass with the edge of a butter knife. "Before we cut the turkey," he said, raising his voice over the room's chatter, "I just want to say how proud I am of this family. It's not easy raising kids, building homes, staying strong through the years." He looked down the table with a proud, misty-eyed smile. "So here's to our real grown-ups, the ones who've stepped up, built families of their own, and carried on the traditions that matter." His glass rose. To Scott, Ellie, and Sam. Everyone clapped. Except me. My hands didn't move. My body didn't move. I sat frozen next to a child who was peeling string cheese and humming the Paw Patrol theme song. I felt like I was underwater, listening to the world from behind a thick sheet of glass. The blood had left my fingers. My chest felt hollow and heavy at the same time, like all the air had been sucked out of me and replaced with cement. Ellie beamed, basking in the glow. Scott laughed and clinked glasses with my dad. Sam gave a sheepish nod and put his arm around his wife. Even the in-laws were glowing, proud participants in a pageant I'd never been cast in. I could feel their gazes brush past me like I was a smudge on the lens, a shadow they'd grown used to ignoring. No one even glanced in my direction. They weren't trying to exclude me. They already had. I thought back to last year, how I'd skipped Christmas altogether, told them I had a work trip, when really I just couldn't bear to be invisible one more time. And now I realized something gutting: they hadn't missed me. They hadn't changed. In fact, this year, they'd made it official. They didn't forget me. They put me at the kids' table on purpose. It wasn't some last-minute oversight or awkward space issue. This was deliberate. This was designed. Like everything else in this house, curated, calculated, controlled. And suddenly, All those years of being the afterthought snapped into sharp focus. This wasn't an accident. It was a tradition. I stepped out onto the porch, needing air that didn't reek of honey ham and judgment. The cold hit me like a slap, sharp, biting, honest. I leaned against the railing, watching my breath curl in the dark like cigarette smoke. The yard looked peaceful, dusted with snow, twinkle lights glowing along the eaves. It was the only thing that didn't feel staged. The door creaked open behind me. I didn't have to turn around to know who it was. "Thought I might find you out here," Ellie said gently, wrapping her shawl tighter. "You always did bolt when things got tense." I didn't respond. Just kept looking out at the quiet, hoping she'd get the hint. Of course, she didn't. "Look, I know that table thing probably felt weird," she continued, stepping closer. "But it's not personal. You just make people uncomfortable sometimes, Lena. You know? The way you live, alone, no kids, always working. It's hard for Mom and Dad to relate." She said it like she was breaking the news about a flat tire. I turned my head slightly, enough to meet her eyes. "So their solution was to humiliate me?" She winced. "Don't make it a thing. We're just trying to protect the vibe. You showing up all independent and intense, it throws them off. They don't know where to put you. It's confusing." Something inside me went still. Not angry. Not sad. Just still. I should have yelled. Should have thrown every insult I'd kept bottled since we were 12 and she made me cry in front of her friends. But I didn't. I didn't have it in me to fight for something so broken. Ellie reached out and patted my arm like she was giving condolences. "Maybe it's time you thought about settling down. Honestly, I think they're just embarrassed. You make them feel like they failed." I nodded once. Not because I agreed, but because I needed her to leave before I said something that would break us for good. She smiled, satisfied, like she delivered some necessary medicine, then stepped back toward the house. "Come inside soon. Mom's slicing the pie." And just like that, she vanished into the warm, glowing light behind the front door. As if she'd done her part. As if that was love. I didn't scream. I didn't cry. I just walked out. I slipped through the front door while they were too busy unwrapping pie to notice. My coat was still damp from earlier, scarf stiff with melted snow. I didn't even grab my gloves. Just keys, phone, and the bitter taste of every insult wrapped in a smile. The driveway was quiet. The car was cold. The tires crunched over fresh snow as I pulled out, headlights cutting through the dark. No one chased me. No one noticed. Vermont's backroads were pitch black and endless, like the universe had swallowed the world whole. I didn't have a destination in mind, just a way. Away from the curated dinner table and the Christmas cards I never made it into. I drove without music, hands tight on the wheel, heart thudding in a slow, even rhythm. My body felt hollow, but my mind was sharper than it had been in years. 25 minutes later, I spotted a gas station diner off Route 12, lit up like a relic from a decade that had forgotten how to end. Fluorescent lights. Rusted booths. A waitress who didn't look up when I walked in. Perfect. I picked the corner booth and slid into the seat. The vinyl squeaked under my coat. I ordered coffee from a menu I didn't bother reading and stared out the window at the snow swirling against the glass. It was quiet in that kind of way that doesn't beg to be filled. The moment rewound itself in my head. My dad's toast. My mom's fake warmth. Ellie's weaponized concern. Scott's smug grin. The plastic chair. The booster seat. The construction paper name tag. Like a bad dream I'd finally woken up inside of. All of it added up to one single, piercing truth: they never intended to see me. They needed me to stay small, to remain the footnote, the eccentric one, the cautionary tale about what happens when you don't follow the plan. And for years, I had quietly played my part. But not anymore. I didn't need to shout. I didn't need to slam a door or write a dramatic monologue. I needed something smarter. Sharper. Something they couldn't ignore or twist into a tantrum. I pulled out my phone. Scrolled past the texts, the emojis, the passive-aggressive "where are you" messages. And then I opened the family group chat. I already knew exactly what I was going to say. Not with volume. With precision. I scrolled through the photo album on my phone, fingers trembling only slightly from the cold or the clarity, maybe both. I found the one I remembered without even needing to search. Christmas, 5 years ago. The whole family lined up in front of the fireplace. Matching pajamas. Forced grins. The golden trio, Scott, Ellie, and Sam, center stage. And me, half-cropped on the edge of the frame, kneeling next to a dog that wasn't even ours. I uploaded the photo to the family group chat. No text. No emojis. Just the image. Then I added the caption. Here's to always knowing your place. Short. Quiet. Brutal. The typing bubble started almost instantly. But I wasn't done. I tapped out a message with the kind of focus I used at work when I needed to land a six-figure pitch. Each word sharp. Each line a clean slice. You know what hurts the most? Not the seat. Not the table. It's realizing you all chose to make me feel like I don't belong, again. Year after year, I've come home hoping for something different. Hoping to be seen. And every single time, I've left feeling smaller than when I arrived. This year, you didn't forget me. You placed me. At a folding table. With toddlers. On purpose. Dad, thanks for the toast to the real grown-ups. That was loud and clear. Mom, thank you for the special spot. I'll never forget it. Ellie, I heard every word you said on the porch. You all pretend like I'm the difficult one. The distant one. The dramatic one. But really? I'm just the one who stopped pretending. I don't need your pity, your pie, or your place card. I'm not coming back, not until you see me for who I am, not who I failed to become in your eyes. Merry Christmas. Send. For a moment, nothing. Just silence. Then Scott chimed in. Wow, Lena. All this over a chair? Get over yourself. You're not the main character. Classic. Straight from the playbook of a man who's never had to question where he belongs. Next came Mom. Lena, I don't understand why you always have to ruin things. We were just trying to include you. This is not what family is about. Please don't make this into something it's not. It's Christmas. The guilt, neatly wrapped in good intentions and passive regret. Then Ellie, of course. You completely misread everything. I was trying to be helpful. Maybe if you didn't isolate yourself all the time, you'd feel more connected. You always assume the worst of us. That was it. The trifecta. Dismiss. Deflect. Defend. Exactly what I expected. Exactly why I sent the message in the first place. My phone buzzed again, not from the group chat this time, but a private message. It was from Amy, my cousin on Dad's side. We weren't close, but she was the only one in the family who ever looked uncomfortable during the guilt parade. Her message was short. Hey. I probably shouldn't be saying this, but I wanted you to know, I overheard something before dinner. The whole kids' table thing? That wasn't because there wasn't space. It was your mom's idea. She literally said, let's put Lena there. Maybe it'll remind her she's still part of the family, in her own way. Then she laughed. I'm sorry. That wasn't right. I stared at the screen for a long time, the words flickering like neon signs. In her own way. That's what they called exile now. Nostalgic betrayal wrapped in a pretty bow. Strategic. Deliberate. Planned. They hadn't just overlooked me. They had designed the dismissal. It hit harder than I expected, not as rage, but grief. Not a single raised voice, Not a single slammed door, yet somehow, this hurt more than any blow-up ever could. I thought back to every time I'd made excuses for them. Every moment I'd said, they don't mean it like that. Every time I'd convinced myself it was accidental. But now I knew. It wasn't an oversight. It was a choice. And once you know someone chose to minimize you, to reduce you to the joke at the kids' table, they don't get to claim ignorance. Or innocence. I sat there in the diner booth, surrounded by formica and fluorescent lights, my coffee gone cold. The grief sat heavy in my chest, thick as wet wool. Not just for what they'd done this time, but for every time I'd let them. But that clarity? It felt like armor. Because once the illusion shatters, you don't go back. You rebuild. Without them if you have to. The phone lit up again. Mom. I let it buzz until it stopped. It buzzed again. And again. On the fourth try, I answered. Not because I wanted to. But because I needed to know what she'd say, now that I'd said everything first. Her voice came through, tense and tight, like she'd been holding in a scream for hours. Lena. This has gone far enough. You made your point. But this isn't how family works. We don't walk away from each other. We talk. I stayed silent, letting the air hang heavy. She continued, her voice cracking just slightly. You embarrassed your father. You humiliated all of us. I don't understand why you're being so cruel. We were trying to include you in our way. You've always been sensitive, Lena, but this is selfish. I spoke softly. Calmly. No, Mom. What's selfish is asking me to keep shrinking to make everyone else more comfortable. What's cruel is placing me at the kids' table and calling it inclusion. What's humiliating is pretending like love only counts if it fits your idea of what a daughter should be. She sucked in a breath. I could hear the calculation, the gears shifting from offense to apology. I didn't mean to hurt you, she said. I really didn't. Maybe we didn't handle it well. But you're blowing this out of proportion. Everyone's upset. You made Christmas about you. There it was. The pivot. The tidy bow of guilt she always tried to tie around my neck. I smiled, not because it was funny, but because it was so familiar. The same script, year after year. But this time, I wasn't reading from it anymore. You didn't lose your daughter tonight, I said, voice steady. You finally met her. And then I hung up. No dramatic click. No final word. Just silence and peace. I got home around 2 a.m. The city was asleep, blanketed in snow and quiet, like the world had decided to take a breath. My apartment greeted me the way it always did, still, soft, and mine. I tossed my coat over the arm of the couch and padded barefoot to the window, mug of reheated coffee in hand. Outside, flakes drifted past the glow of the street lamp, slow and hypnotic. No carols. No expectations. Just winter, honest and unapologetic. For the first time in my life. I wasn't lonely. I was free. I thought freedom would feel loud, like slamming doors or screaming truths. But it was quiet. It was space. It was saying, I'm done, and knowing you don't need permission to mean it. There's power in choosing peace. In no longer trying to twist yourself into something palatable just to keep the illusion of family alive. I used to think solitude meant something was missing. Now I know it means nothing's being taken. So let me ask you something. Have you ever felt like the outsider in your own family? What would you say if they finally listened? Drop it in the comments. I promise, someone else needs to hear it too. Because here's what I've learned. Family isn't just who you're born to. It's who sees you. Who chooses you. Who pulls up a chair and says, you matter. Just as you are. And if they won't? Then you choose yourself. You build your own table. And you sit at the head. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more inspiring stories of courage and change. Every time someone stands up for themselves, speaks their truth, or walks away from what no longer serves them, it sends a ripple. You never know who needs that spark. Maybe it's you. Maybe it's someone reading your comment. Maybe it's someone who's still sitting quietly at their own version of the kids' table, waiting for permission to rise. So let's make this space one where we honor honesty. Where we validate each other's experiences. Where no one has to shrink just to fit. Together, we can create a world where everyone's dignity is recognized and respected, no matter how late they arrive to their own worth. And if no one's ever said this to you before, you deserve a seat at the table. See you in the next story.